Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend Lelei Tui Samoa Lelaulu.
Maruru, Pascal. Yorana. Kia ora. Yorana, everybody. It's great to see you here. We're here because of the intelligence, vision, and capacity to look into the future of their peoples of President Fritsch, and as you heard from his equally intelligent Vice President, Teva Rorich, who outlined for us what this seasteading and this conference indicates for the future of French Polynesia, other islands in Polynesia, and throughout the Pacific generally. And also, let's not forget Mark Collins for being so good at retail and bringing seasteading to the Pacific. I'm going to talk about Polynesia, about Venice, Hokulea, Moana, fish, blockchain, and a new age of exploration. And by the time I finish, I will have a big Marquesan club on my head. Thank you. The Polynesians established regular maritime traffic over the Polynesian Triangle. You Polynesians know what the triangle is, but you draw a line from Hawaii straight south to New Zealand, and then you draw lines again eastwards to meet in Rapa Nui, Easter Island. This is over 10 million square miles of the Pacific Ocean, and it's called the Polynesian Triangle. Now, the Polynesians, over 1,000 years ago, they established regular maritime traffic. They sailed between the thousands of islands of Polynesia regularly. And then they stopped. Arnold Toynbee, the English historian, said that the fact that the Polynesians could do this, and considering the degree of technical difficulty, small va'a, versus the mighty Pacific Ocean, and to do it regularly, he said this was the greatest technological feat known to humankind. It was a technological feat, he said, that could only be equaled when there was regular interstellar traffic, traffic between the stars. Now, of course, I think that was a bit much, but still, you got the idea. He was very impressed with what the Polynesians could do, but then he said they stopped. They became sort of, they reversed into primitivism. But the thing is that maybe they saw the land masses of the Americas and thought, not for us. It was proven by archaeologists that the Polynesians did take. They went to the Americas and they brought back the sweet potato, which is all over the Pacific, Polynesia. And in return, they left the chickens. And it's wonderful, we make wonderful things with sweet potato, but after hundreds of years, what do the Americans give us? Kentucky Fried Chicken. But, you know, if we'd given it to the French, at least we could have got some coq au vin, you know. You'll hear later from our colleague and friend, our brother Tua Pittman, about the fabulous Hokulea voyage, which circumnavigated the globe. It didn't make much media, probably because people couldn't believe the fact that Polynesians, using only traditional Polynesian navigation, could sail around the world in 2 years. And they ended their voyage here in French Polynesia, which is significant again, in Raiatea, which is the spiritual home for most of us Polynesians. But it shows that the spirit of exploration among the Polynesians is still there. And the fact that Polynesians are, in a sense, with the modern education, are beginning to wonder, where do we go next? Meanwhile, on the other side, on the Americas, way before Kentucky Fried Chicken, we have the European Americans who went west as their young men were bid, go west, young man, and they did. And mainly for the gold, but after the gold lost its luster, they were there, but then they developed technologically to the point where, of course, Silicon Valley and the rest of the technological advances of the United States are based in this area. This is the pinnacle of technological advancement in the West, probably. And they're at that stage, they're looking for another place to go. I mean, they've reached the pinnacle of technological innovation, probably with Tinder, right? So they have to look for partners in other parts of the world. So seasteading is here, but they're going to launch westwards even farther into Polynesia, where they are today, which is great. And we need them, because while we have very, very smart people from the Silicon Valley and from the technological community of the United States, a lot of them want to go to Mars, which is great. So it's going to cost a lot of money, and it takes a lot of brains, and I wish them well. But apart from everything else, the view is much better in the Pacific. But if you look at the fact that only 5% of the oceans have been explored, that's like 70% of the world is unknown in the oceans. Consider the billions of life forms that we're going to discover. A lot of them will be part of our food security as we go forward. And consider also the fact that the knowledge that we'll get will require so much curating that it'll probably be the greatest mass influx of knowledge that the planet has seen for many, many years as this exploration goes on. What we need to take advantage of this is to do and set up and design the new age of exploration, which will be in Polynesia and the Pacific. The old ages of exploration, of course, reached out of the old world, but then again, they stopped as well. And the thing is that we Polynesians are seasteaders, or seasteaders are Polynesians, I would say. If you look at another civilization, look at Venice, Venezia. A small group of people trying to escape the violence, the corruption, and the deadly, crippling bureaucracies of the land masses went to a lagoon, built platforms, built houses on it. They built buildings on small islands. Sound familiar? These are the seasteaders of the West. And what they did is they looked outwards into the ocean with their backs to the land. They were not a consumer-oriented society. They were into knowledge and trade and developed different forms of companies. And they looked after patents, they had insurance, and essentially what it was a civilization which focused on the economy and entrepreneurship. And the important thing is, in Venice, they controlled the money. Venice became a fiscal machine and ruled the West for 1,000 years because of this. This backed by a diplomatic genius and the ability to adapt and move on and use their knowledge for the better. So I think, I'm sort of chopping things here for Pascal, but I think that what we want to do is, you've seen the movie Moana, which means that Moana, or what's it called here? Vaiana, isn't it? Vaiana. I mean, it's a wonderful movie, but what it has done is it has spurred the imagination of an entire generation of children throughout the Pacific and other parts of the world. Children who want to grow up to be like Moana. They want to go to the sea, look for the solutions to the problems that they face, and work with them. So we have a thirst for knowledge in the Pacific now, which I think should be addressed. For example, let's not use the old forms of education, which is basically warehousing developed by the Industrial Revolution, but let's look at new forms of learning, which is what people from the technological friends from Silicon Valley and elsewhere in Europe can bring with them. There's so many things. I mean, our kids, they should be taught to program by the time they go into middle school. They should know about quantum computing by the time they're in high school. And they should look at all the new forms of learning so that they can move outwards. For example, look at DARPA. DARPA, the American sort of innovative part of the US defense industry, they have a program called TNT, which is Targeted Neuroplasticity Training, TNT, which advances cognitive skills training by strengthening the neuronal connections in the brain. This is just the beginning, but this will signify a change to enable our kids to learn so much quicker. So as they develop, let's make these neuronal connections the brains of Polynesian kids as we go forward. And at the higher level, think of the Chinese. The Chinese empires, they ruled for thousands of years, not because of their military might so much, which is important, but they ruled because of their bureaucratic and administrative skills. The Mandarins of China kept China a force in the world for thousands of years. We should consider that at the higher levels, we should be using GUMP and others. We should be developing programs for Masters of Ocean Business Administration. We should be teaching our young people more about the oceans and how it applies to everything in their lives. By so doing, I think it is possible that at some point we want to have, when seasteading is moving, we want to produce mandarins of the marine. Let's own the oceanic intellectual space, and let's start thinking about it soon. Because as we know, many of us in the Pacific are independent politically, but we are not fully independent because we don't own the knowledge and we don't own the money most of the time. So we look to seasteading as a possibility of helping us build these capacities so we can start looking at a dynamic future. Because with the brains and the bucks that you people bring, seasteading is capable of solving the grand challenges facing the oceans and the seas, problems which used to be addressed only by nation states. We're lucky here because we have a very visionary government in this country who sees the problems early, which is why we're here, and sees the opportunities. But it's not always the case. Now, what we need to is to look at setting up new financial systems. Now, I said I was going to talk about blockchain, and remember Venice, they became great because they controlled the money. And we do not control all the money in the South Pacific. I know it. I used to work for the World Bank. But consider that we have a new form of money to go along with the seasteaders, free of the greed and the avarice and the bureaucracies of the major financial markets of the world. This is why I want you to consider blockchain. Blockchain, if it starts off with seasteading here, and when it starts to work, then it becomes the financial systems of seasteading as we move forward. And then consider also, you'll hear more about it later, but consider too that this will give us the fiscal engine to keep. Can I buy that? Did you take Bitcoins? But we need to build, with the trust as a major element of blockchain. So we might look at building commercial revolutions of trust instead of offshore banking facilities, which we islands have always done, and the big countries are now trying to destroy. Let's look at building blockchain managements to allow blockchain facilities to allow the big corporates in the different parts of the world and the governments to move their transactions to something which is trustworthy, transparent, and effective. Look, a quick thing, what else can we do? We can do aquaculture. Aquaculture is now to the point where it's almost as big as the captive fishing industry. But I think that seasteading also offers us a chance to look at how we might develop the production of fish in the oceans to feed the world. It's the major source of protein for most of the larger countries in Asia, and I think this is an industry which we could look at as well. Not just fish farming at one level, but imagine multi-layer fishing farming going right down to the depths of the ocean, with fish and creatures at their optimum levels. Which means that with this, you would be controlling much of the protein for the larger countries, especially in Asia. And also, I think, as we've noted before, that the commercial fishing has to be controlled, and it has to be made so that hundreds of thousands of tons of fish are not dumped back into the oceans because people in faraway lands find that they taste too fishy. We have to find ways of making fish as expensive as caviar, so that people who really want to eat fish will pay for it, and the rest will design plastic fish fingers for them. And patrolling the sea, hey, you can build a navy with 3D and 4D technologies at sea if you need, but you don't need a navy, you need sort of patrol, and you need access to the satellites to give you information exactly where everything is. But the point is, just to wrap up, there are so many opportunities for Polynesians in the seasteading offerings. It offers us the possibility of reviving our passion, our spirit for the oceans. It allows us to develop and flourish while remaining in our te Moana. And it allows us to exercise complete freedom, more complete freedom, by controlling our resources and our money and our social structures. They say that we reverted to primitivism, but in fact what we did is we worked more on social structures. And the thing is that it's not seen by Europeans because they see us all as a bunch of pleasant fellows. And we dress funny, but not I want to tell you a story. Any Fijians here? It's a true story. During the independence of Fiji, the ceremonies, the British brought in diplomats from different parts of the world to make it look as though Fiji was important because they were giving it independence. And one of the guys they brought over was a little man from Scotland, and he'd just come from Africa, and he was jet-lagged, and he was running down systems in Africa. Now, the king of Fiji, he's about 6'6", has a big afro, and like many of the high chiefs in Polynesia, the higher your rank, the less you wear. So if you see somebody with great headgear, blah, 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 they've got a contract with Hollywood, it's okay. But the king of Fiji, he had very simple lava, black, a little tattered, bare feet, a bead of ranks, that was it. And he was talking to my father, who was similarly attired. Now, the king of Fiji was educated in the best schools in England. But he was talking to my father in Polynesian and Samoan, actually, he spoke Samoan. And this little Scotsman is running down islanders. And suddenly the king breaks into English and talking to my father, he says, I have Scottish blood in me. And this little Scotsman goes up and goes, you've got Scottish blood in you. And without even looking at him, he said, yeah, Daddy ate someone called MacDonald once. So beware what you see in Polynesians. As I said, social structures are very important, but I'm going to end here because I've really got a bad headache and a club will not cure it. So This is it. What we have is the possibility to build seas of excellence and archipelagos of enlightenment. That's what we have down the line. That's what we discover in addition to the billions of life forms that are not even evident today. And as for sea level rise, the technology that we have available to us in this room, and because of others that they know, will allow us to live and to not look at sinking islands, but look at a future, a brilliant future of floating islands. This is a very good conference because you can tell a good conference because the people next to you are as intelligent or as interesting as the person on the stage. So I'd like you now to introduce yourself to the person next door to you and in one sentence explain who you are and what you are and why you're here. Go ahead.
Big applause to my friend Lelei, Tui Samoa Lelaulu.